When you think about luxury, a classic handbag, a bottle of incredible champagne, maybe a piece of timeless jewelry, what comes to mind? Well, chances are, many of those iconic items all live under one absolutely colossal roof. And the story of how that roof got built? Oh, it's a wild one, full of ambition, bitter conflict, and just sheer market dominance.
So take a look at these brands: Louis Vuitton luggage, Tiffany's jewelry, Dior fashion, Sephora cosmetics, Dom Perignon champagne, and even Rihanna's Fenty beauty. What on earth could they possibly have in common? I mean, at first glance, almost nothing, right? They all seem to operate in their own separate universes. But there is a powerful, almost invisible thread connecting every single one of them.
That's right, every single one of them belongs to the French powerhouse LVMH. That's Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton. And we're not just talking about a big company here. We are talking about a full-blown empire. An empire so vast that it doesn't just follow luxury trends, it literally creates them.
The scale is it's hard to wrap your head around. To put it in perspective, in April of 2023, LVMH became the very first European company ever to be valued at over $500 billion. So how did one company get this dominant? To understand that, we have to go right back to its dramatic and kind of messy beginning.
This was no simple, friendly corporate marriage. Nope, the creation of LVMH was actually born from a huge conflict that would end up changing the entire face of luxury forever.
And just look at the history here. We're not talking about Silicon Valley startups. These are companies with roots stretching back centuries. Moet and Chandon, Hennessy, and Louis Vuitton were absolute titans on their own. So in 1987, they decided to merge, thinking they'd be stronger together. And, well, they were right, but not in the way any of them expected.
See, here was the problem. The leaders of the two original groups, Alain Chevalier and Henri Racamire, had completely different visions for where the company should go. This clash created a bitter power struggle right at the very heart of this new entity. And that internal conflict, it created the perfect opening for an outsider to make a move.
And that outsider was a brilliant, incredibly ambitious, and some would say utterly ruthless businessman named Bernard Arnault. He saw this family feud not as a crisis, but as a golden opportunity.
This quote pretty much says it all. In a desperate move to get the upper hand, Louis Vuitton's Henri Racamire invited Arnault to invest in the company. He thought he was bringing in an ally, a friend. In reality, he was opening the gates to a conqueror.
Arnault's strategy was as brilliant as it was brutal. He masterfully played the two sides against each other. And within just 2 years, he had pushed out both of the founding families and installed himself as chairman and CEO. Just like that, the old guard was out and Arnault's new era of aggressive, relentless expansion had begun.
So, with Arnault now in total control, LVMH embarked on what you can only describe as one of the most incredible shopping sprees in corporate history. He started systematically buying up the world's most desirable, most iconic brands.
Today, the LVMH empire is made up of more than 75 distinguished houses, or maisons as they call them, and each one is a powerhouse in its own right, but together they form a portfolio of luxury that is just completely unmatched.
Now, this empire isn't just a random collection of brands. It's meticulously organized into these core business groups. This structure is actually the key to its power. By dominating everything from fashion to fine wine, LVMH creates this incredible safety net. If one sector has a down year, the others can carry the weight, making the entire company incredibly resilient.
The strategy is really quite simple. Acquire the undisputed champion in every single category. You get Dior in fashion, Tiffany in jewelry, Sephora in retail. See, when you own all the top players, you don't just compete in the market anymore, you effectively are the market.
And to see this playbook in action, well, we don't need to look any further than the high-stakes, bare-knuckle brawl for the iconic American jeweler Tiffany & Co.
This whole thing was a total corporate soap opera. First, LVMH announces this massive, blockbuster offer. But then the pandemic hits, and they suddenly try to back out, publicly slamming Tiffany's management. Well, Tiffany fired right back with a lawsuit to force the deal through. In the end, LVMH still got its prize, but only after this bruising public fight that, what do you know, shaved a few $100 million off the price tag. It was a masterclass in aggressive negotiation.
And that Tiffany takeover is just one piece of this massive puzzle. When you multiply that level of ambition across dozens and dozens of brands, you get this:
a truly global footprint. The data just shows how dominant they are everywhere, with Asia and the United States now leading the charge as their biggest markets.
But when a single company becomes this powerful, its influence inevitably spills beyond the worlds of fashion and finance, and that attracts both a ton of admiration and some really intense scrutiny.
I mean, LVMH's reach is just immense. They're a media mogul, owning major French newspapers. They're a cultural force, funding that spectacular modern art museum in Paris. And they're a global sports player, becoming a premium partner for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. This isn't just a company anymore, it's a cultural institution.
But of course, that level of power doesn't come without its fair share of difficult questions and some really serious controversies. Over the years, LVMH and its brands have been at the center of a number of scandals.
And the controversies have been as diverse as their brands. There have been some really serious allegations, from corporate espionage investigations to claims from PETA about animal cruelty in their supply chains. There have been some high-profile embarrassments, too, like reports of their 2024 Olympic medals already deteriorating. And then there have been major brand crises, like the shocking firing of star Dior designer John Galliano over a horrifying anti-Semitic tirade.
Ultimately, the story of LVMH is one of breathtaking ambition and scale. And when you look at its iconic tower in Manhattan, you realize its presence in the global economy and in our culture is just impossible to ignore. It is a massive testament to a singular vision of what luxury can be.
Which leads us with a final, really crucial question. From the champagne we might toast with to the bags we carry, LVMH's influence on what we aspire to own is just unparalleled. So we have to ask ourselves, what does it really mean for our culture when one single company becomes the world's chief arbiter of taste, of beauty, and of success?